Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And we are here with the Quranic Inquisition. And today we're going to obviously continue where we left off with our fantastic panel with Odon, JC, and Usama Dakdok to talk about, is it Jesus or is it Muhammad in the Quran? And I think the evidence is becoming very, very clear. There's too many parallels, but also, of course, this research has created a great deal of controversy and misrepresentation of the argument, but let's not get too much into that right now. So welcome, guys, and welcome back. Usama, you are kind of new to this. I mean, you're a neutral party. Everyone likes you. You're a smart guy. You're a funny guy. You're my friend, my special friend. Everybody's...
And listen. When I said you're my special friend this morning, I really mean it, okay? This time, I really mean it.
No, but this... You really mean it. Thank you very much, Usama. And tell me something. What makes you interested in this topic? I mean, for you, it was something brand new a couple of weeks ago. What made you decide this is worth investigating?
Let me put it this way. I will live to learn, and when I quit learning, that's when I'm dead, unless I'm becoming arrogant and so prideful. I'm not going to be. I hope and praise the Lord will not make me arrogant. So keep me humble and learn. The idea of Muhammad, which I studied all my life, the normal story of the Mecca, Medina, back to Mecca, it's kind of, this year have some holes in it. I mean, literally big holes. So I'm glad that some other people digged into it and seek the knowledge. I am not saying that I'm not believing that there was Muhammad, as we just mentioned a minute ago, but the idea of Muhammad of Mecca, it does not really hold water, that in the specific years, in the specific time, Muhammad, and no, by the way, it's not just the contradiction in that Muhammad story. It is the history of the Quran. It is the history of Islam. Nothing we learn about Muhammad or Islam except there's always disagreement among Muslim scholars. So, did he went through all that which the normal study we talk about in Egypt, or we have the other stories which I discovered later as I went on? So it's a problem. It's a problem. And the more we dig in, the more I will come with my conclusion soon, not later, I hope. That I will give you my full theory about the idea of Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the man whose father died 3 years before he was born. I mean, literally, the whole thing is like a comedy from beginning to end. If Muslim believes that Abdullah is the father of Muhammad, that itself caused me to doubt the whole story a good, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when I discovered that Abdullah died 3 years before Muhammad. Obviously, there are Muslims who believes that a woman can be pregnant, according to the scholars of Islam, the four schools of thought, the Hanbali and Shafi'i and Ahmadi and all this wonderful Muslim, whatever he calls them, that, yeah, a woman can be pregnant 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. So if you believe in that, everything goes. No problem whatsoever. Anyway, so that's my simple thoughts about the topic.
Right. And I mean, we can see the parallels, and I think there are certain passages that just are clearly just, I mean, Muhammad doesn't even appear in his own book. Jesus appears 30 times more, and then Moses appears like, I don't know, 50 times more. It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the name Muhammad, yeah, but you, the Y-O-U, is all over the Quran. And scholars will tell you, you here is Muhammad. We is Allah speaking to you, Muhammad. So you find lots of you in the Quran. I don't know the exact number, but it's that's another mystery. The Quran.
Yeah, I don't know. Did Allah send down brackets along with the golden text from paradise?
There was no bracket at the early days of Islam. No.
Odon, welcome back. Well, what are your thoughts?
Hello, everyone. I fully agree with Osama, and I was about to say what he just said. There is no clear mention of Muhammad in the Quran, and moreover, the four mentions Muhammad and Ahmad mentions, most probably there are late additions to the text. I already said it in previous streams.
Right.
But the thing is, as Usama said it, if we read the Quran for what it is, what is literally written in it, see that many times it looks like instructions. Someone gives instructions to someone, and that someone is supposed to preach the discourse that is being instructed. So maybe we can, if we read thoroughly, we can get some clues about the people that are being instructed, and they might have been the historical Muhammads.
Right. And JC, welcome. What are your thoughts, JC? Because you're the one who's taking this particular idea, this literary analysis as an author, as a fiction author, and reverse engineering or deconstructing how these religious texts were used and modified to create this new narrative. And you've caused a lot of problems, okay? You've caused a lot of arguments. I expect some kind of apology from you.
Yeah, my dog will not talk to me anymore. My own dog. I mean, hello.
This is only the beginning. Well, first, Lloyd, thank you very much for hosting, and Odon, Usama, it's lovely to speak with you guys again. So my view is exactly what you guys have said, like very similar. I think everyone at one point believed in the narrative. Some people still do. And then at one point or another, for different people, different times, we would find something that really doesn't make sense. And we think, no, there must be something else to this story. And then we dig into it. The problem is that when you do that, then you find more and more problems and the whole thing collapses. So at the moment, everybody is analyzing everything, all the scriptures and the hadiths, coins, inscriptions. I'm actually just looking at the Quran and saying, I'm not going to take anything for granted, because the people who has told us what those verses mean, they were liars.
Well,
so if somebody says, in here it says, you, that is Mohammed, it's like, okay, let me read the verse and see if it's describing Mohammed or if there is something else going on. So that's all we do. We just look at the Quran.
I think we all agree that when we read the Quran in the sense that Odon first described it, and now with your layer, lens that we're looking at it through, the Quran seems to make a lot of sense. It actually seems to make then a coherent story that continues at least in a vaguely Christian tradition. It does seem to hang together with previous Christian traditions. It may be heterodox, sure, but then it seems to make sense. But Usama, I mean, we've done what, 38 episodes now on the Quran and Tafsir, and that has been a riot.
We're not digging deep, brother. I mean, there's so much stuff we left behind, because if I will follow the writings of Ibn Kathir in his book, Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, the beginning and the end, the story of the Prophet, Qisas al-Anbiya, Lord have mercy, we will still be talking about that.
But we see that the Quranic story is incoherent. It makes no sense. It makes assumptions. It makes jumps. It has huge gaps. The Tafsir has to fill in gaps that the Quran leaves empty. Otherwise, you have a completely incoherent story that cannot support its origin and cannot support its continuation.
You're absolutely right. And by the way, this will carry on all the way until we get to the last chapter of my book, volume 2, which is about Muhammad. Even the story of Muhammad is actually, wait a minute, the story of Muhammad is actually worse than that which is written about the rest of the prophets, which Muhammad mentioned earlier. I mean, think about it. It does not, I mean, it seemed to me, Muhammad, in his own teaching in the hadith, assured us that his mother and his father are burning in hell. But somehow, when you read the story about the birth of Muhammad, the light came out of her mother, and the light, first of all, the light came out of the father to Amna, and the light came out of Amna when Muhammad was born. It's like, hello. Why not Amna became a Muslim? Why not Abdullah became a Muslim? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
He curses his own family. Yeah, just so you know, before part 2, I'm going to join the witness protection program and change my name, okay? It's just so you know. Odon, just to protect my sanity. Odon, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have many thoughts on the topics. One that comes to mind, because I am reading this huge book, The Muhammad of Historians, which is a sort of follow-up to the Quran of the historians that has been published in French. So there are two huge books with something like 40 academic studies about the depiction of Muhammad, studies about Muhammad in the Quran, and so on. And one thing that comes to mind is that among knowledgeable scholars, they all know that there is no historical Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
They all know that the prophet, the story, the character of the Prophet of Islam is an invention. They all know it.
So why is this cool? I believe you. I mean, academics must obviously be able to see this story makes no sense. But why has there been such a backlash, at least from the YouTube community? I mean, why is there such a backlash, do you think?
Because it might, I won't blame it on the academics, but they haven't built on this discovery. They know that the Islamic character is false, but they do not dare to replace it with their own hypothesis. And so there is a sort of blank that is filled by us, that is filled by our work, by the work of independent researchers.
So scholars didn't want to touch it, so they've left it open to us, and we're the ones that are now. So we've taken the opportunity. Do you think there's that we have? I mean, you could dismiss us all as amateurs, but I think we've all been very thorough and loyal to the source material. And I think we've been very detailed and honest and open and upfront about our research. But I mean, there are others on the other side of the fence. You know, I just find it strange, and I don't buy their arguments, because evidence like the coins, the maps, the lack of archaeology, all of these things, you know, these can't just be dismissed.
And the convergence of all these clues.
Yes,
we see no divergent clue. Bring me a coin with Muhammad Rasulullah from 635, for example. That would be very hard for me to explain.
Mm-hmm.
But there is none.
At least, you know, here's a fact. One of the reasons which make me strong in my belief in the Christian faith is that the writings of those who hated Jesus, the writings of those who did not like Christianity, about the truth of my Christian faith. So it's not just the disciples write to us about Jesus. How about the philosopher or the writers or the historians write about Jesus? How about the people who did not like Jesus write to us about Jesus? Mm-hmm. So you cannot deny there was a guy by the name Jesus. I don't know how you believe about him. Is he the son of God? He's a fraud. He's a blasphemer. He's whatever. But there are plenty of material written. Where is this material was in the case of Muhammad?
There is some. We have some external sources about the leader of one of the Arab factions. We have the Chronicle of Sebeos. We have the anonymous fragment, for example. We have the Doctrina Jacobi. But the thing is, they do not describe the Prophet of Islam. And that's the main difference with the literature about Jesus. When the Jews wrote about him in the Talmud, they did not deny he existed. Such as the Romans, for example, the earliest testimonies of Christianity and the existence of Christ. Excuse me, Usama?
Like Tacitus? The Roman,
yeah, for example, and what is being written about Jesus converges with the Christian narrative, whereas the external sources about early Islam do not converge with the Islamic narrative. They depict, for example, a leader named Mohammed or Mahmad, not Muhammad. This is something to consider, for example. They depict a leader who was urging his followers to conquer the Holy Land, not Mecca.
Right.
And there are some huge historical events that are not taken into account by the Islamic narrative, such as the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem.
Yeah,
which is something of who should have had an enormous impact on the narrative, but it's not even there. There's only the mention that a companion of Umar, when he took Jerusalem, asked him the permission to build a synagogue on the Temple Mount.
Right. Yeah, JC, let's go over to you, and then we'll jump into the research. Your last thoughts, JC.
Well, I think we can all agree that there are holes in the narrative, and yes, there was someone, at least someone, probably more people that, as described in the Doctrina Jacobi and by Sevius and so on, there was someone. But in order to find out what that person was preaching, what was even his beliefs, his religion, we have to go to the Quran, to the Hadith, and to all of those sources. Now, the Hadiths, of course, are being just discussed by everybody. Now I'm just looking at the Quran, and one of the examples that we have covered before is the Quran says in 3 different places that Jesus died, and Islam says that Jesus didn't die. Therefore, if there was a Muhammad, he could not have been the prophet of Islam, because that would have made him an apostate. So just by looking at the book, we will find out some clues, and hopefully we can put that together with everything else that we find and come up with what happened some 1400 years ago.
Right, and upset a lot of people along the way. So let's dive in. Over to you, JC.
Okay, great. So I've just used this thumbnail that you used last time, simply because otherwise
it breaks the
next slide.
Well done. Good choice.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So here we go.
It doesn't have Usama's picture on it, because I had that there too,
Yeah. So this is something we've discussed before. The Yesmos, those who say that Mohammed existed, they actually think that the Quran is from the right period, in the right language, it was produced en masse, and it was in the right region. So we can say, fair enough, therefore the Quran should tell us if all of those stories about Muhammad are about him, and therefore, fine, he existed, we cannot disprove it. Or if those stories told in the Quran about Muhammad, if they are not him. So with that in mind, we've been covering this thesis now in a number of episodes, which is we have the bottom layer of in the Quran is what is written in the Arabic. And that says that Jesus died and resurrected. It says that Jesus is God. That text actually affirms the Trinity, and it has no idea about a guy called Muhammad walking around in Mecca. That is what the text says. And of course, we've unpacked a lot, and we will be unpacking more. There is, for anyone, it should be a huge red flag that Muhammad is meant to be mentioned only 4 times in his own book, just like Lloyd, you said earlier. It makes no sense. In the traditions, he's described as a megalomaniac.
I also think, how can we talk about a man that lived in a place that has no archaeological record? And in fact, if you look at like the 13 most attested locations in Saudi Arabia, not one of them is Mecca.
And it only appears once in the book, because if it appeared a lot, you would think, okay, there you go. But only once, and there is no archaeological finds. The logical conclusion should be, okay, so that meant something else, and it is a mistranslation. They created the story later. They created the city later, or they renamed a little shrine that was already there. That would be the logical conclusion. After all, the tradition said that Muhammad spent 10 years in Yathrib, and in all of that time, only one revelation came up with that name. It makes no sense. And also, Mohammed, he's described as a narcissist in the traditions. He would insert his name everywhere, and it would be very detailed. So those are huge red flags. If we were to take the book, translate it literally, and give it to someone who has never even heard about Islam and they read it, they wouldn't understand a single thing. After the thing, if you said, okay, so what do you think about Makkah? They would say, is that in the book? I don't recall. And if you say, so what do you think about Muhammad? They would say, who is Muhammad? This book is about Moses and Jesus, because he's not mentioned. They would be very confused. And what adds to the confusion is the top layer. This is the tafsir layer. They have been pointing at verses and saying, okay, this is all about Muhammad. And what I'm doing is pointing at those verses and saying, certainly not Muhammad.
But then also look at Mel's research. Muhammad, if you go back, I mean, I covered it in monotheism like 2 or 3 years ago. the earliest references to Muhammad are references to either God or Jesus, and these are Ethiopian references from Abraha and so on. So you got these inscriptions from Abraha from the 400s, which point straight to God the Father with his son Jesus, called Christos. And that's in Mecca, and then that's in Arabia, just in the region of Mecca.
Yeah, which probably as well points to if there was a Muhammad doing these things in Mecca, if there was even a Mecca, which there wasn't, he wouldn't be able to get away with it. That region had been Christianized. They would have known that he's speaking absolute nonsense. But that's why they will say, no, it was pagan lands. No, it wasn't pagan lands. It was Christianized. So,
actually,
if you don't mind,
the majority is Jewish. Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Someone?
A quick thought I'd like to share. You know, the longer we go on in time, the easier, the faster the fame of somebody would be. So if we are 1,000 years before Christ, yeah, maybe people heard of David or not heard of David. I mean, David was a famous guy, even though some deny that he did exist, but we have the evidence of it. But you go to Jesus' time, it took some time for the news about Jesus and Christianity to spread, but obviously persecution helped it to spread a little bit faster. But you go to Muhammad 600 years after Christ, you should have him become a famous guy in much less time than that of early people, early famous people, early important characters. Why we need to wait for 10, 20, 30 years to learn about Muhammad, even though that took place 600 years after Christ? It could be, should be a lot faster, especially with the explosion the Muslims are teaching us. I mean, they are telling me in my textbook in Egypt that they moved from Saudi Arabia to Egypt 641. So literally 11, 12 years after Muhammad died, and Egypt became a Muslim country. So that huge jump from Mecca to Egypt and to take over the rest of the known Muslim world within few years after the death of Muhammad should make Muhammad very famous around 641, at least in the Muslim world.
But in the 700s, no one had heard of Muhammad.
Exactly.
That makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. So what we discussed in previous episodes, Usama, if there is something here that you don't like, maybe you haven't actually seen these arguments before, we've covered them. We can discuss any time that you like. But some of the things are, so Al-Isra, the night journey, Surah 17, verse 1, is not about Muhammad, is all about Moses. The Surah 97, the whole thing, the night of Al-Qadr, nothing to do with the Quran being revealed or descending from one heaven to another, is the birth of Jesus. And we know as well that the moon is split. That is in the book. It says the hour has drawn near and the moon has split. But there are no stories written about that until much, much later. So we know that they were creating hadiths trying to put Muhammad into the book.
Yeah. Ibn al-Qais wrote poetry 35, 40 years before Muhammad, quoting the same verse when Shaq al-Qamar. So the split of the moon was known about. As a matter of fact, the daughter of Ibn al-Qais came to Muhammad and she told him, this is, according to the scholars writing, Muslim, this is a statement you take from my father's writings.
Yeah. And then also the Burak story comes from the 800s from a poem, and it's attributed to Abraham. So the Quran wasn't written in 625 or 638. When aspects of it are written 2 centuries later.
Yeah, well, I hate to jump, but when the thought comes to my head, I don't give it out now. I'll not remember it later. In the story of Joseph, Quran chapter 12, Joseph was sold for few of dirhams. Dirham as money did not exist in Muhammad days. As a matter of fact, in the story of the cavemen, you're talking about go with your paper. You're talking about money made out of paper. Paper money was not invented by the Chinese for hundreds of years later. So how can you have these verses in the Quran about not silver, but dirhams, not about just money, but paper money? Somebody play with the Quran hundreds of years later. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the 750s when the dirham was first used, I believe. So this is 120, 130 years after Muhammad dies.
Whatever the date is, I know for sure.
Yeah, so the Quran, I mean, so this money comes more than a century after the death of Muhammad, when the Quran is already finished. So how do they include something from the future into this book? Odon, I think you want to say something?
It was just about the split moon. What you said, Usama, you referred to some pre-Islamic poetry, which is part of the Islamic narrative. We have no mention of this Islamic poetry other than in the late Islamic narrative. And when you look at the verse, it's a very simple verse. The hour has come near. So it talks about the days last, the judgment day. And so it talks about the catastrophes and the signs there will be during this time. So there is nothing about a Quranic miracle or Muhammad having split the moon or something like this. It's just a prediction about the apocalypse. And at a later time, when the makers of the Islamic narrative needed their prophet to perform miracles, they looked in the Quran for verses that might fit a probable miracle having been done by their prophet. And so they selected this one and invented the miracle of the split moon. And that was it.
I did this research I got 20 years ago when I translated my Quran, and before verse 1 of Quran chapter 54, I wrote, Muslims claim that Muhammad divided the moon, but the infidels still would not believe. Actually, the verse does not say that Muhammad divided the moon, but simply that the moon is divided. Verse 1 is actually poetry written by a poet. His name is Imr al-Qais, who died in 540 AD. Notice Muhammad was not born until 570 AD, according to Muslim historians' writings. So, somebody can correct my information here. I would love to hear the
you see the problem
These just big clues, because all of those things are actually pointing at what happened. And like Odon said, this is actually written later to make it about Muhammad. So we know that the text is there and it says one thing. In this case, okay, fine, we can say that it comes from some poetry, but it has nothing to do with Muhammad. And then later, people create not only the hadith, the whole isnad and everything, because they have to give him a miracle. So all of these things are very, very big clues. For me, when it comes to the moon split, I haven't found a single account of outside of the narrative of people saying, hey, we believe in our guy because he split the moon. You would think that is the first thing they would say when they encounter a Christian, because if Jews would say Moses split the sea, Jesus died and resurrected, and what they would say about Muhammad, he split the moon, the big sign. But it is not discussed outside of the narrative until much later. So we know the book is there at one point, and then later they're writing stories to make it about Muhammad. So
and here's the fact: we're talking about 30. The Bible records to us 31 miracles of Jesus. We have never discovered miracle number 32 years later, which means when Jesus performed these miracles, it was in his lifetime. People saw it, people believed it, and it's not like Jesus performed some miracle or he did something and then 500 years later, or maybe 1,000 years later, oh, here he is, Jesus did perform a miracle. No, what is the purpose of having a miracle to be performed if people did not see it and believe it on the spot? See it and believe it.
Good point.
It's the miracle of the Quran. It's the miracle of Biddah. So
does it change the argument any if people say, well, you see, actually, the story was known for 200 years, but it only got written down in 731 when you see, I mean, how does it change it? Because then how do we explain how the money got there, But then I don't think that helps the case, because then you are adding stuff that happened more than a century after the death of the protagonist here.
Yeah. And certainly it is clues that show that they were actually adding things and writing things into the book or on top of the book when they shouldn't have been. Some of those I try to stay away for the time being, because maybe there's a problem with the diacritics and the actual Rassam said something else. Maybe it was changed later, but maybe it was not even supposed to say that at all. But we see more stories, like we've discussed as well before, that the Quran says very clearly that Jesus died. In 2 verses, it says that in the future tense, so it's pre-crucifixion, and in one verse is in the past tense, so post-crucifixion. And it says that he resurrected. So we know that the book, when it was written, it was saying these things, which they are 100% incompatible with Islam. So they have to create all of those interpretations to say, no, 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 let me tell you what it means. And we've seen quite a bit of that. So the book says one thing, but then the traditions, they tell us something completely different.
Interesting. Ora makes a very good point. With the Gnostic Gospels, which started to add lots of details and facts and so on, supposed facts, the church saw this as a problem because the canon was closed. So adding things a century later was a serious problem. And they said, no, that can't be, that has to be false. That's not part of the original story. Whereas clearly we've got stuff added 150 years later into the Quran.
Sure. Lloyd, can you bless me by reading Quran 9:31? And just a quick thought here about the true writings and how the Quran declared that Christ is to be God. That's a verse. Sadly, if my dear brothers here did not have it in my accurate translation, most likely they missed it. Most likely.
9:31. I'll do it for you now.
Yes, please.
Should I share my screen?
I know,
just read?
I know it by heart. It's
Okay, I'm just going to share, and then you'll have to just reshare in a moment, right? Give me a sec.
It's a very powerful verse, like the verse in the past tense, 5:116, when you caused me to die. What did it say here in 31?
They take their rabbis and their monks as lords rather than Allah and the Christ, the son of Mary.
Notice here, Allah and Christ to be taken lords. Not one other translation in the English language have put it right. They all lied. They all put Christ earlier or put Christ later and tried to separate. This is a very powerful verse. دون الله والمسيح عيسى ابن مريم. والمسيح.
And they're not commanded to serve except one God. So you've got one God, that's Allah and the Christ.
Yeah. That's a big problem for Muslims who will be honest with themselves when they read. I know 5:16, when you caused me to die, past tense. Actually, that led my friend Mustafa. He used to be a professor at the Azhar University, and he used to be imam in Cairo, one of the mosques in Cairo. He became a Christian because of that one verse, the past tense of the death of Christ.
Yeah, and the Allah and the Messiah, that one is the only place where they actually have that. The thing is that every time when we see in the Quran, Allah and his messenger is the same. So when they were writing this, most of the work was always about Jesus. In all of those verses that talks about the messenger, they have really tried to push Muhammad into those verses. But the majority of them, if not all of them, are of course about Jesus. Is actually always associating Allah and his messenger, exactly the same as Allah and the Messiah. So, but yeah, the book says very clearly that Jesus is Lord. And we've seen as well, they call him the Word. He's the Word of God. And we've seen as well some of the Qira'at where they seem to have been hiding that as well. So we're starting to get a theme of what the Quran originally said before they twisted it as much as they could. And like Usama said, Surah 9, verse 31, every single translator will add a little line, a bracket, a space, another word. They will try to make sure that you don't see Allah and the Messiah together because it breaks the theology. Isn't that interesting?
Sure.
So other things that we've seen before is the successful, according to the Quran, are those who are the Christians, those who follow Jesus. The verses that say something like, those who do whatever will be the successful, there are vague verses. Those are the ones that say, those who pray and do righteous deeds will be the successful. And it's like, fine, that's every religion that you can think of. But then the specific ones, every single time is Jesus. And the ones that we think, no, this is Mohammed because it says Allah and his messenger. If you unpack it, as we did one verse last time, it is very clear it was always about Jesus. So the book had this theme and it had no idea about Islam at this point when it was written. We saw as well that the messenger, the Ummi prophet, it was a description of Jesus, and also that the word Shekinah is very rebranded into the tranquility of Allah, because otherwise it gets too close to the Trinity, most likely. So we've seen plenty. For anyone who hasn't seen any of the previous shows, this is not about taking one verse and just looking at it and that's it. This is a compounded argument. It's about looking at hundreds of verses, and we see the theme and we see exactly the lies and how they have changed things. So if someone is new to this and they say, oh, hang on a minute, they're just taking things out of context. Yes, look at the other 200 verses that we've discussed and we take it from there. All of those things that we see here is the Islamic narrative. It is not in the Quran. It is not the source. The people who have told us the stories, they were liars. That's what I want people to remember as we go on. They lied about what the book was saying. They created a fictitious story, and that fictitious story is what we read. So, for example, here, we have this verse, Surah 5, verse 46, gives the game away. It's saying that Jesus confirms the Torah, what came before him of the Torah, and also that he got the gospel, which confirms the Torah. Now, this verse should have been removed very early on, and they didn't. So now we can nitpick. Every time that the Quran says that something confirms something from before, in every single case, is Jesus confirming the Torah, or it is the gospel confirming the Torah? In every single case. At no point it is the Islamic Quran. There are a couple of verses that will mention the Quran. Those have to be unpicked. I've been working on those. And we're going to see some examples. Now, in here, this sentence here is Baina Yadeihi, which David Wood likes to talk about this one quite a bit, because it means he confirms what he has between his hands, what he has with him. There will be verses in the Quran that will say, and we sent it confirming what came before it. And we'll use this Baina Yadehi expression. In those cases, he's talking about the word confirming the Torah. At no point is meant to be the Quran confirming what is between his two hands, whose two hands, and that is the Torah and the Injil. It's all rebranding. So for anyone who is working on this research, just remember, follow the money. In this case, Baina Yadehi, it is actually used for Jesus. Something confirming what came before is nothing to do with Islam. This book is not aware of Islam. We have the same thing here. Surah 61, verse 6, Jesus again confirming the Torah. And then there is the whole thing about Ahmad, but you know what? We're not going to talk about that one today, so we can send it away. I'm just looking at the clock. So, and 350, the same. This is supposed to be Jesus speaking, confirming what was before him of the Torah. Fine. This is the theme of the Quran. Oh, and
I have a quick question for you, brother.
Yeah.
What do you do with Quran 548, the following verse from 546 and 47? See, 545 talking about the Moses and the Torah, and if people don't believe in it, they become infidels, and it's had to have guidance and light. And anyway, and 546, 47 talk about the Jesus and the gospel, and then 548 speaking of Muhammad and his Quran. How do you address 548?
Oh, well, quite simply, because 546, so is this one, for 547, he's saying, all people of the Injil, follow what has been revealed to you. And then in the next one, it says, so we have revealed to you the book in truth, confirming what came before it. So it's like, okay, so let's think this through. So we have verse 46 is talking about Jesus confirming the Torah and the gospel confirming the Torah. The next verse is talking about the people of the Injil. And then, as if by magic, we get to verse 48. And now we are 600 years in the future with Mohammed saying, not the Quran, but saying the Kitab bil Haq. It is all about Jesus. It is all about Christianity. This is supposed to be the, let's say, the preacher or the person speaking these words is establishing that Jesus confirms the Torah, and the Injil, which later is referred as the Kitab bil Haq, confirming the Torah. Then he's saying the people of the Injil follow the Injil. And then the the narrator or the person speaking is saying, you follow the Kitab bil-Haq, which confirms what came before it. The Kitab bil-Haq, the Gospel. What came before it? The Torah. And it says, as is faithful over it. The word is Muhammad. Is it Muhammad?
Muhammad
Yes, Muhammad over it.
Mhm.
So the Injil is Muhammad over the Torah. Muhammad being from the word of faithful, which comes from Syriac, if I remember correctly, which means is faithful to the previous book. If it is the Quran, it just breaks everything. That's how I would interpret 46 to 48.
If I might add something here, there is a general meaning that comes out of those verses 48, 49. We see that let's say the person who is instructed by the we is being sort of tested. It seems that he lives in a sort of coexistence with Jews who abide by the Torah. But he, since he has the gospel plus the Torah, he is a bit different than the Jews. And it seems to me that the instruction is here to sort of make him understand that he is not like the Jews because he has the gospel. And since he has the gospel, he shouldn't fear to be confounded, to be seen as a Jew. You see my point? When you read the two verses, this comes to mind. So there is something of an historical context here where let's say the believers or the preacher and the believers were living in a very close vicinity or with Jews. So it might have happened during the conquest of Jerusalem around 614, or it might have happened elsewhere. But it's something to take into consideration, and this is why I think the text insists on having the gospel plus the Torah, or the Torah plus the gospel.
Yes, and when we are not really sure in this verse when it actually says, and we gave him the gospel. I need to actually, I can't remember if I checked the Kirat, but I actually still haven't even decided if by gospel, Injil, they actually mean the whole New Testament, or if they actually mean one gospel, which is the one that they have. So that's why I try not to get into those things. It's like, okay, let's try to keep it as open as possible, as opposed to narrowing it down. But certainly the conversation seems to be between Jews and Christians, and so far we haven't seen a single Muslim around.
Yeah. We talked to you and I, Lloyd, about the book, and we said there was no book in Muhammad days, period. So if we take 548 as Allah speaking to Muhammad, and to you we send the book, the Quran, there was no book in Muhammad days. Not the scholar of Islam could not tell us Muhammad received a book. That's a problem itself. What book are you talking about?
Yeah. What scripture?
Yeah. If we play it out, and we might
the book. Yeah. And as I always said, a book have a cover. A book in pages stick together, not a scroll. Not a scroll now. If you use a scroll, now you have a piece of paper. But even what I studied in Egypt in college or even high school, whatever early years, the Quran was written on a small, tiny piece of leather, wood board, bones, dead bones, shoulder blades, the leaves of palm trees. I mean, you're talking. There's no book.
Muhammad was taking 20% of all the booty. How did he not have the money to write a proper book?
No. I don't think if there was Muhammad, brother. If there was Muhammad, it would be so stupid of him to write his book in a book form. When you're lying, you don't want to record your lying. You don't want to make a video about it.
Fishermen, and they managed to properly write a book, or at least a scroll.
Yeah. There's something else about the meaning of the word book or kitab. kitab in Arabic, it's not book per se, it's scripture, what has been written. And it is very close to the Hebrew katov, which is the same word, exactly the same word. And in Hebrew, we use the expression katov for scriptures that have become sacred. You see, for example, when a rabbi teaches, his students learn his teaching by heart, and as time comes by, his teaching is recognized as sacred, and then is put into writing, and then it becomes a kitab.
Kitab.
So you see the difference here. The kitab is something that is religion, that has become religion, that has been sacralized.
So they are using the word and they're giving it another meaning, and we're being distracted with this other meaning and missing that it's actually.
When we say book, actually, it's not really a book. It means a scripture for a religious instruction scripture that has been sacralized, such as the Torah, for example, or it could be also the Talmud. The Talmud is a perfect example of a scripture that has become sacralized. And in the Quran, the great offense that the Jews did is that they made the Talmud into kitab. They sacralized it. They make it an equivalent of the Torah, of God's word. If we,
something like, I'm gonna just hold that thought for one moment. Here's something that I'm not going to explain it very well, but I get the sense, and I spoke to JC about this, and it's very hard for me to explain this, but you just spoke of the Talmud, which is like an exegesis of the Torah, right? As well as an exegesis of the 632 mitzvot, the oral law, which ultimately is written down, right? But it's an expansion and application of that. I get the sense sometimes when I'm looking at some of these arguments and the way that there's more than one group that's fighting within this Quran. There's more than one group. At one point, it was with these guys. Another point, you had these guys. And another point, you had a different group. But one group seems to be, we only deal with the scripture alone, just the book. We don't need anything else. And another group wants to use secondary sources, right? So I get the sense there's a fight over an oral tradition group that needs to expand upon this, and a group that wants to stick to this thing alone. And there's a friction between them, because when you're working from the Quran alone, it's so vague, there's no way to explain things. And another group writes these additional secondary sources to try to explain some of these. And a third group came and had to merge these to make sense of it, because you had the story with no justification, the guys who try to write the background, and then the third group had to merge these as one story. That's the sense I get. Usama and then Odon.
Yeah. Well, the Quran only people, they are the one who is embarrassed of the writings of their scholars.
Right.
They read it. It's not like they're not familiar with it. They read it and they are embarrassed, like, whoa, are you serious? Is that what Allah actually meant? Is that what actually Muhammad said? So what do you do? So I don't believe in the scholars. I don't need Ibn Kathir, Al-Tabari, Al-Qurtubi, Al-Jalayn, or Al-Dawud, Al-Makhshari. I don't need these people. I can figure out myself. When in reality, he knows he cannot understand anything about it by himself. So you get to the mixed groups, like, well, here's the deal. I would take some of what the scholar said if it makes sense to me. Well,
so this is genuine sense of these three groups, that it's just something that's been bugging me now for a couple of weeks. And I spoke to JC about it. Odon, what are your thoughts on this? Because someone had to harmonize and synthesize this mess, and that's the feeling that I have. I mean, it's what I'm kind of figuring out lately. Yeah.
Actually, I didn't get your point, Lloyd.
Oh, let me try again.
Your point on the three groups. What are
so let
exactly?
me try to oversimplify here. One group has this book that's holy, the Quran alone, right?
Yeah.
And for them, this is everything. This is enough. The problem is, it's not enough to explain its history, its origin. It cannot justify itself. Then you have a second group, maybe 20 years later, maybe a century later, I have no idea, but you have another group that comes along and goes, okay, we've got this core text, but we need to explain it and justify it somehow. We need to flesh this out. they write a bunch of secondary texts, right? Your tafsirs or whatever the heck, right? To try to explain this. Then a third group, and they make up a bunch of nonsense too. Then a third group comes along later and goes, okay, both of these have become canonical, but there's a conflict. We now need to harmonize and integrate this mess into a coherent story. That's kind of a sense that I'm getting based on the arguments that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think this process happens many times during the fabrication of Islamic narrative. But bear in mind that there was no corpus, there was no Quran before Abdul Malik. Before him, there were various collections of notes and manuscripts. And it's only with Abdul Malik that they are merged together, that they are merged, edited, selected, edited, some of them modified a bit.
So think you have the Umayyads, then the Abbasids get demolished, and the last group has to figure it out. Came the Ottomans, maybe.
But the thing is that for example, the early Umayyads, starting from Abdul Malik, they did not see the Quran as the Abbasids later saw it. For the Abbasids, the Quran was the support of the divine revelation that gave them legitimacy to total power, to the caliphate.
This group says this is the divine word. We don't need to add anything to it. Stands alone. The other group says, yeah, we're going to need some context here.
Yeah. But, and besides, within the Abbasid regime, there was a core of Alids, a core of Shia Muslims. Let's call them this way. But even if it's a bit anachronicus, they were not called Shia Muslim at this time. But and so there were various factions within the Abbasid coalition. We are taught about the Mutazilit and Asharid factions, but also within the Abbasid coalition, there were people who believed that the revelation still there were still themselves
ongoing revelation,
the support of the ongoing revelation. So they might have had their own explanation for the Quran, which challenged then
someone had to harmonize this mess, and that was the last group. And I don't know which century that was, but some group had to come along and try and harmonize this nonsense.
But maybe it was even after the Abbasids.
Ottomans.
No, it might be because the harmonization, when we really look into it, it came very, very late. Bucharest Treaty, for example, Bucharest Hadith. We don't know that they were finished during Bucharest time.
Yeah,
the earliest manuscript is something like 200 years older, younger, excuse me, than Bucharest.
True, but then also we don't know when they were fully canonized. But Osama, do you have to leave early? You said you may need to leave.
I'll wait a little bit.
Yeah. Would you like to add anything before I go to JC? Because I've got a question for JC after this.
No, we're good. We're good, brother.
JC, Odon, Owa makes a good point here. When the Quran says gospel, Odon, I'd love to get back to that question a bit later, but yeah, that would be interesting to discuss. It says, when the Quran says gospel, it may mean the four gospels, right? Because the main group that is in the Quran rejected the epistles. They are never referenced. So JC, what is it that the Quran never references? What does it reference and what does it not reference? Maybe that also tells us to what texts were extant or which group was active because they had leaned on a certain thing, and maybe we can trace that historically.
Well, I think we just see the name there, Injil, and nobody knows what it is. What is the Injil, right? The thing is, I'm doing sessions with our brother John, who is looking at the themes that we find in the Quran and interpreted them through the Bible. And so far, he has found the themes that we find everywhere, as well in the Acts of the Apostles. the whole
Mhm.
Bible from Genesis all the way to the book of Revelation, like the
Really?
same themes. So I cannot say how much these people actually knew, but so far it looks like they knew more about Christianity than we give them credit for.
Okay, and the leanings are very Syriac Christianity, right? Because the language tends to lean Syriac. The leanings seem to be very Syriac church, like Nestorianism sort of leans in that direction, doesn't it?
Yeah, but we have to unpick more and more verses. A lot of these problems that we have in verses that they seem to point at Muhammad is because they try to put him into a verse, and in order to do that, they had to break the verse, and they do that with the diacritics. So once we understand the theme that is going on around the verses, is when we can say, okay, these three words really stick out like a sore thumb, and we can try to figure them out. And by we, I mean that should be a word for someone like Usama who understands the language and can figure those things out very, very quickly.
A quick share here. The word Injil is written in the Quran 12 times. I don't have to quote you, trust me for that, but I got the location if you're interested. But the first time I have in my translation, I said it is actually a non-Arabic word of Greek origin, which means it's towards the gospel, the good news. That is the word Injil. And by the way, I believe Muhammad or whoever wrote the Quran does not know what the word Injil is, because Injil is Bishara. Bishara is Khabar Sar. It is a good news. It's a Khabar Mufrah. It is a joyful news. Hey, you got a son. Your son came back home safely. Something good. That is Injil, Khabar Sar. It's always good news. That's what it is. It's a Greek word. But if you listen to what how Muhammad used that word in the Quran, وَبَشِّرُهُ بِعَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ, and give him the good news of a great torment. Man, how can you have good news of great torment? So actually, Muhammad used the word yubashir, which is a root of the word Injil. It's actually the verb of the word Injil, which gives the good news. He's sick, it's just announce, let them know, informs them. No, that's not what the word. The word bashir, it is always gives a good news, give a joyful news, something real good, you know? But that's not how you understand hell to be. Hell is not a good news. That's a bad news.
Yeah. I just want to mention something. I just want to go to Ethiopia for a moment. So the word Arabic Injil, now this is based on some research I did a couple of years back, so I can't remember it all offhand now. But it does resemble the Ethiopian word Wanjil, right? The word had already been introduced into Arabia by the Abyssinian Christians at the beginning of the 6th century. In fact, even sooner. The generally accepted origin is Greek, euangelion, good news, entering the Arabic via the Ethiopic Wanjel. According to Arthur Jeffrey, the long vowel in Wanjil, like the second syllable of Injil, is a very close resemblance, closer than the Syriac. So now you've got this Ethiopic link. So they have the Christian community in South Arabia at Najran, which was perhaps the oldest Christian community in Arabia, right? They were persecuted by the Jewish king Dunawas. I think he's a heterodox, as in heretical Jew, right? So many of them were Nestorians. Others were Monophysites from the Monophysite Church of Abyssinia. And in international trade, Abyssinia was a major source of trade. So I don't want to get too long into this, but Abyssinian, philologically, Ethiopic is the ancient language of Abyssinia. It is the most closely related to Arabic of all the Semitic tongues. Just as a basic fact here. Now, the contacts in Muhammad's lifetime are close, right? The southern portion of Arabia had been under Abyssinian rule. The Abyssinian army was dominant, right? They'd marched with Abra. They took with them the full Abyssinian Bible. They had the full Coptic Bible or Ethiopic Bible at the time. So within the 3rd century, you actually had a full Bible from Ethiopia in Arabia, and this was the dominant military and economic force at the time. There were trade relations between Abyssinia and Arabia, right? Because they were the 4th largest kingdom in the world at the time, and so on and so on and so on. Just what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting theory.
And the word Tawhid, it comes from the Ethiopic Tawahedo Church. I mean, the word Tawhid.
We already talked about it when we did a stream about the associationists, Mushrikun.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out something else. Injil is a Greek word, and there has been
well, originally Greek,
Yeah.
Evangelion, but it comes through the Ethiopic into the Arabic. So
Because you
no, but it might have came through with by another way. You see, when Persia was evangelized, starting from the 1st century, there were still Greek cities in Persia, in the Persian Empire at the time. Greek cities that had been founded by Alexander the Great. So the evangelization of the Persians used two languages. It used Aramaic and it used also Greek. And so it might be a reason for the gospel being called Injil.
Yeah. And we have it in the Bible 68 times.
Yeah,
I
of
mean,
course.
so
But
it's
that's
not
the
like
name.
we know for sure it's a Greek word. Yeah.
And that's the very name of the gospel.
Yeah.
Gospel is good news, good tiding in Aramaic. The early name, the very first name of the gospel is this, good news.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you have
Exactly.
extensive known historical links to Ethiopia. I know that the northern thesis and the eastern thesis is very popular, but the fact is that Arabia is in Arabia, and we have extensive links to southern Arabia, and we have extensive links to Ethiopia.
Yeah.
So we know which people.
It tells us that early Islam was not did not happen in one place.
Yep.
It developed among among various influences from Ethiopia to Persia to Jerusalem to Syria, and it cannot be it cannot be that it happened only in one place.
Yeah, but it's just that because J. Smith cuts it off at 570 and moves north strictly, it kind of ignores anything that happened prior and anything south and west.
Yeah, exactly. And besides, things also could have developed independently, and then they could have merged. You see, for example, there might have been an Arab Christianity very influenced by Ethiopia in Arabia, and then influences from the north came, and the religion developed in a sort of melting pot, using
trade routes would
influences from the north and from the south.
Yeah, I mean, trade routes would explain that. Trade was the internet of the day. It would be perfectly explained.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah. JC, your thoughts? Odon and Osama?
We're doing good.
JC, back to you.
Yeah, I think figure out more things in the Quran, we will be able to see as well where they actually borrowed the stuff from. At this point, I would say they have some words that are Pahlavi and from all sorts. So certainly it is not very clear cut, and certainly a lot of Syria. But gears.
So is it just me, or are you breaking up?
He's breaking up. It's cutting bad.
Yeah.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Am I back?
But that's also why, because you're back. It's not clear cut. This is why I have a problem with some other people, at least, who simply want to claim, yes, there was one guy called Muhammad. He was born on the 12th of February, 570 AD, and he died on the 9th of January, 632 AD, just after his 62nd birthday.
You know that bunch of the Muslims do not celebrate the birth of Muhammad. They say, actually, a large number of Muslims do not celebrate the birth of Muhammad. They think it's a no-no, like Jehovah's Witness does not celebrate Christmas.
What sad people.
Yeah.
You know, they should send their Christmas money to me. I can use it very well.
I can use it.
I can do what the Red Cross does. I can donate 6% to charity and keep the rest for fees.
Anyway, well, since you have, I think I felt from your talk earlier that you gave me permission to leave. But would you please send me the link, because I really want to hear the rest of the conversation.
Guys, are we
We
going to give
promise.
Usama the link? I mean, are we going to let him leave? What's
Please, listen, you didn't hear me. I will send you one of those. Woo!
What's this?
Oh boy!
It's a dollar? No.
You know,
$1,000.
If you're lucky, Usama, I send you one of these. This is 50
How much is it
million
worth?
Zimbabwe dollars.
How much is worth? How much
Billion.
is worth in my US dollar? That's what I care about.
This is my retirement. I'm leaving this here on my desk for my retirement.
I tell you what,
50
if it's worth,
million.
if it's worth more than $150, I will send you one of these.
Come on.
Look, here's the back. It's real gold, man. Look, shiny like gold. Anyway, appreciate you guys. Love you all. And apologize for leaving early. I have to be at the shop in 20 minutes ago. Let me put it that way. But we'll catch up. We'll continue, but please send me the link, okay?
Send.
Nice speaking to you, Sama.
God bless you guys. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. God bless. Yeah, JC, back to you.
Well, I had just moved actually a slide that we're going to see in a minute for the benefit of Usama, because I think he would like that. So fine. Now, hopefully you will send him the link and he will actually pick up from here. So what we were actually establishing here is a theme. It is a theme that the Quran keeps talking about Jesus doing these things, confirming what came before it. And then they tell us when verses are saying that Jesus confirms the Torah, they change all of that and say, no, this is now Mohammed confirming the Torah and the Injil. And we're going to see that in a minute. But as it is now tradition, we see here on the very final line here on Surah 3, verse 50, Jesus confirming what was before him in the Torah, and then to make lawful for you some of what was forbidden. So something that only Allah can do. We have this verse in the Quran saying that Jesus did that, which of course, then they have to fix it. No, is God makes things lawful and unlawful. Jesus sends the message. It's like, no, this is Christian. And this is what we have seen already in every single show. I will bring this up every time where we saw Surah 7, verse 157, which is a total description of Jesus and nothing to do with Muhammad. It says, making things lawful and unlawful. So again, we see the themes repeating, and also we see how they try to hide things. They want this to be about Muhammad, and now you have something that Jesus does and is absolutely halal, which is making things lawful and unlawful. Now you have Jesus and Muhammad doing it, and they are also not doing it because it's only Allah. So you have to then reinterpret the whole thing. So anyway, we've discussed this one quite a few times. This one was going to be the end of the show, but I had moved it for Usama's benefit, so I hope he sees this, because I found it very interesting. So Surah 48, verse 9. We read here from our very good friend, Daif International, that you people, or your people, may believe in Allah and His Messenger, and honor Him, and respect the Prophet, and exalt Allah morning and afternoon. Okay, that's not what it says. We have here, sorry, let me actually just get the mouse straight. So we have here Allah and His Rasul. That is the section. So Allah and His Messenger, this section. But there is no more Allah anywhere. There is no more Prophet anywhere. What we have is three things that you need to do. 1, 2, and 3, all connected with a wow. So that's very good. So what happens when we put this through a literal translation? So that you believe in God, in Allah, and His Messenger, so far so good. And you support Him, and you honor Him, and you glorify Him morning and evening. Now we're having a big problem here, because all of these things are about the last noun that was used, which is the messenger. You are meant to support the messenger, honor the messenger, and glorify the messenger. But we cannot have that in Islam because it would give the game away. So just like that, it changes. Now you have to honor him and respect. They have to put there the prophet. So this is where it ends. Here is Muhammad up to here. Trust me, bro. And then you have to exalt Allah, because otherwise you are glorifying the messenger.
But that's not what it
and
says.
you're an apostate.
A candid question here. What could mean to support the messenger?
To support the messenger.
Yeah, what would it mean? How come Jesus would need some support?
See what Saint Murad says.
You see, with your literal rendering, word for word, so that you believe in the God and His messenger, and you support Him. You support the messenger.
That was, I just threw it on ChatGPT, by the way. So we could actually go with Dave International if we wanted, but let's see what Murad says.
Yeah.
For you to believe by Allah and His messenger, and reprimand Him, and venerate Him, and something, and by the Virgin, morning and pre-sunset. You know, the fact that it's always Allah and His messenger means God and Jesus. I mean, they're inseparable. Right? Clearly, it's inseparable. I mean, I think you've made this very clear, JC. We can look at Usama's translation as well, if you want.
But the thing that is very interesting here is the following verse, verse 10 in Surah 48, because in verse 10 there is a clear mention of the leader of some Arabs. Indeed, those who pledge allegiance to you, they are actually pledging allegiance to God. That's very interesting because it tells us about the status of the preacher.
So to summarize, go on, sir.
Yeah, the thing that is very complex and difficult to understand is that the historical Muhammad, the one that is being instructed in the Quran in order to preach to some Arabs, he was given a sort of divine power also. You see, here in the verse, in Surah 48, verse 10, the instructor tells the preacher, indeed, those who pledge allegiance to you, they are actually pledging allegiance to God.
Right.
So you see the complexity of the situation. In the historical dossier, we have someone that does not pretend to be the Prophet of Islam, but who does pretend to be a sort of God's apostate, in a sense. Because if you pledge allegiance to him, you pledge allegiance to God.
Okay, so...
And that's interesting because it comes just after the verses we saw, verse 8 and 9. We have sent you as a witness and a bringer of good tidings, that you may believe in God and his messenger, honor him, respect him, and exalt God morning and afternoon. And because of this, we have the following verse, because of this, those who pledge allegiance to you, they are actually pledging allegiance to God.
Yeah. Usama says something similar, so that you may believe in Allah and his messenger, and that you may help him and reverence him and praise him morning and evening. Surely those who pledge allegiance to you, surely they only pledge allegiance to Allah. This could be evangelization.
Yeah, it's a sort of evangelization, but it's much more than this. It's becoming part of the faction that will take Jerusalem. You become a sacred warrior, in a way, a jihadi.
Probably Umar.
So, but yeah, but again, the Murad translation is kind of almost incomprehensible when you read it.
Sometimes it's too literal.
Say again?
It's too literal sometimes.
Yeah, it's very difficult sometimes. Usama, I mean, makes good points. Yeah, because also, but then they both have their value. I mean, they both have their value. So hold on, let me just put you back on stream. There you go, JC.
Yeah, so
there's room for argument here. There's room for interpretation, certainly.
Yeah, there are, with Murad's translation, there are things that I'm actually investigating now, which are from his question marks. because he didn't find that word. So then we know the word is from a different language, or
But he left it out. He did not find it. He just usually left it out.
yeah.
It's not Arabic.
So yeah, and with the next verse, verse 10, I have thoughts, but although maybe that's something that we can unpack some other time. I think there might be something else as well with that picture, but it could be as well about someone saying those things about himself. Still then talking about this one, according to Arabic grammar, and I'm happy to be corrected, this is not my area of expertise. If this is talking about Allah and his Rasul, then all of these things are going to be about his Rasul. And then we have the problem with the word glorify, which is the one Murad didn't translate, so it comes from another place. You cannot do that to Muhammad. That means basically associating him with God. So this would make sense with Jesus. Now, when we go to the tafsir, you can see exactly like what they do in here. So I'm not going to read this whole thing. Anybody can actually go and have a look. So in the end, blah, blah, blah. In addition, it is mentioned that the believers must be characterized by 3 more qualities. And what do? That they should support him, support Muhammad, and revere him. And then all of a sudden, as if by magic, pronounce his, now is Allah's, purity morning and evening. If this is about Jesus, no problem. You pray to Jesus and you are fine. You cannot do it in Islam. These things are happening everywhere in the text, where there is something that if you read just what it says, you would conclude this is talking about Allah and his messenger, that would be Jesus. Just like when it says Allah and his Messiah, it would be very clear. But because one of the actions given to Muhammad doesn't make any sense in Islam, they have to just reinterpret everything and make it all about Allah. It's impossible.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't make sense within Islam. It could make sense within an historical hypothesis, the one I told you about. You see, the instructor praises God and Jesus, and he does it so that the preacher, when he asks the people, he asks their allegiance from the people, he does not pretend to be Jesus himself. You see, it's very important for the instructor to make a strong barrier between, let's call him Muhammad, and Jesus. Jesus is the one to be revered. You, Muhammad, you will have the power to make people pledge an allegiance to God. If the people pledge an allegiance to you, it's equivalent as an allegiance to God. But beware, Muhammad. You are not Jesus. You are not to be revered yourself.
Yeah, that would make sense. And the whole that theme actually does appear a lot in the Quran. It's basically even in the narrative when Muhammad would say, well, you guys need to follow Jesus and you need to believe in Jesus, but actually believing in Jesus means following me. Yes. That's actually the standard Islamic narrative. So
but that's the thing of within a messianic movement, there are people who pretend to know the will of God, and so they act as if they were God's Messiah, which is a reason why Muhammad might have bore the title Muhammad. He was sort of, he was not Jesus himself, but he was acting in his stead. So he was a sort of Messiah himself. So he was a Muhammad.
Could be part of the culture, because being the vice regent of Al-Makkah, the god at the time, that was a normal situation. You were the vice regent, the regent of the god on earth. So they could have taken on that cultural tone, could still have affected their worship.
But you see it, for example, in Lord of the Rings, in the movies or in the books. Denethor, the steward of Gondor. He's not the king of Gondor. He's only the steward. So he's he speaks for the kingdom, but actually he acts like a king. He is he's supposed to be a sort of vice king, but he is the king.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the earliest reference in the Jordan desert of Isa, I mean, this is very clearly a Christian reference, but it's very much part of that. It's colored by that culture. So you've still got these, that whole Bedouin sort of culture so they've taken that Christianity and they've still simply modified it, adapted it, or it's taken on that look. So you could see that happening. I mean, this is probably not exactly, shall we say, orthodox. This is going to be heterodox somehow.
For sure. And within the Quran, it's very heterodox, what we see within the Quran.
Yeah. JC, go on.
All right. So I think, one second, where are the slides? And then I think this will be the final section. So just a few verses. And the message is like for the audience, for people who are trying to help understand the Quran better and they are reading the Quran, don't take anything that the tafsir writers said like at all. Take everything with a pinch of salt because they lie. We've seen at the start of the show like quite a few instances where they just replaced everything. And every single time that we speak, we come up with those things. So these are some examples, even without drawing final conclusions. For example, so we have Surah 2, verses 40 and 41. So it's talking to the children of Israel. Oh, children of Israel, remember my favor over you, da, 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 da. Then the next verse. And believe in what I have sent down, confirming that which is with you. Now, you go to the tafsir, is going to tell you that means Muhammad, the Quran, in Medina, and all of that nonsense. We have already established this theme. We've seen it before. It is in the Quran. It is addressing the children of Israel, the Jews. So if the speaker is saying, believe in what I have sent down, it's putting words in the mouth of God, saying, I have sent down the word, confirming that which is with you. That would make sense.
That's the prophecies, confirming the prophecies of the Old Testament. So this could be we have fulfilled the prophecy of the book that's with you. Potentially the Torah.
Yes. If we try to play this out.
Speaking to Jews here, Odon.
It's a bit far-fetched. It's the easiest explanation is that the which is with you is the Torah, and what is I have sent down is Jesus or the Injil.
Yeah, one way or another, like I said before, the Quran establishes that Jesus confirms the Torah and that the Gospel confirms the Torah. So I would normally say, well,
yeah,
but either way,
just something else at the end of the verse. Do not exchange my signs, my verses, for a small price. This is a common trait. You say that a topoi within the Quran. The Jews are accused of exchanging the verses for a small price. And I think it always, or almost always, refer to the Jews editing the prophecies, talking about Jesus, talking about the Messiah, or refusing to take into account the verses in the Torah that prophesies Jesus. And so here it's coherent with the interpretation of the which is with you is the Torah, and believe in the Injil.
Yes, I would be happy with either interpretation, providing it is not, just certainly not about Muhammad. And just to tell the audience that this, if you need to go to the tafsir, what they're going to tell you that Muhammad is in Mecca or in Yathrib, and he's talking to the Jews, there is no Christians around, and he's saying these things. And what God has sent down is supposed to be the Quran. But imagine that scene in your head. Just imagine Muhammad is there and he's talking to the Jews and says, and believe in what I have sent down, confirming what you have. The Jews would say, oh, what has he set down? A book. Can we see it? No, it's not written. It's in my memory. I will recite it. It's like, that is insane. And also, I will confirm what is with you. It's like, no, you're not confirming anything. So it just doesn't make any sense. We've been told all of these stories about Mohammed saying these verses and being about Islam, and there is no Islam in these verses. So in order to figure it out, just like Odon said, is okay, so we have a number of elements to play with, see which ones they fit. And I agree with Odon, the Injil actually fits because of the don't exchange signs.
There's also the use of the verb to disbelieve. So it's kafara in Arabic. Kafara doesn't mean disbelieve, it means to cover. So believe in what I have sent down, the Injil, and be not the first to cover it. So to hide the Injil, to hide the Injil, and to hide the prophecy of the coming of Jesus and the Injil in the Torah. And this accusation of the Jews being disbelievers is all along the Quran. The Jews are disbelievers, they are coverers of the good news because they cover the fact that Jesus is the Messiah. So you see here we have a very coherent verse if you look at it with an historical explanation, and a completely ununderstandable verse if you look at it with the Islamic narrative lens.
Yes, the Islamic narrative is just, we see a lot of the contradictions that happen in the Quran. They're actually not real contradictions. It's because there is a verse that was talking about something basic, like basically Jews and Christians, but then they have put Mohammed with the Quran, with Islam, and then the whole thing breaks. And then we have a huge contradiction. When we remove that is when we start to see, no, hang on a minute, what would these people be understanding from these words? And normally you have just a handful of options. Islam just breaks the Quran entirely. So just a warning for people listening, if you're doing this research, make sure that you don't read Mohammed where he's not. Otherwise, well, you're just reading the tafsir. And the other ones, 289, the same. And when there came to them a book from Allah, confirming that which was with them. So this is talking in the past tense. This will be, I suppose, I think I checked, exegeted as, well, that is the Quran, and it came to them, and they didn't believe. And it's like, no, this is would be talking about the Injil, confirming what they had. But they have to put in here that it's all about Islam when it isn't. Oh, and Odon, as well, to follow up when you said about the disbelief, yes, and another theme that appears a lot is actually what you said about the signs, when they say they lied about the signs from God. Yeah, that happens in the Quran quite a few times. So it looks like people were basically trying to make sure that Jesus wouldn't fit in prophecies and things like that.
So, and you know that the word for signs is the same as the word for verses.
Yeah. And Murad actually has an interesting view on that word, saying that the original understanding was something physical, that it was not supposed to actually be a verse. But I don't have a view on that. He said that according to his research, a sign would be something that they see, but in this verse, I wouldn't know how to fit that in. So probably a little bit more of research on that before I can go one way or the other. And then the last verse, again, we have the same thing. And when a messenger from Allah came to them, confirming that which was with them. Maybe I need to do a show where I look at all of the places where it says that a messenger confirming what came before it, and it's been exegeted as that is Muhammad, because I could guarantee now every single time will be Jesus. If it is a messenger, if it is a book, it will be the Injil, unless it is very obvious in the verse that is talking about, I don't know, an angel or something like that. It will generally be all about Christianity.
I was thinking that there is something else in verse 89. It's supposedly, according to the Islamic narrative, a book, a scripture, came to the Jews. So the Jews were given a physical Quran that confirms that which was with them. This cannot be. There was no physical Quran during the time of Muhammad, according to the Islamic narrative. It was not written down. So here we have a blatant contradiction. The Quran contradicts the Islamic narrative. There never was any scripture, any Islamic scripture, any Quran given to the Jews. You see my point?
Yeah, actually, maybe I should check just in case that one, the exegete, it says that it is the Injil, but I don't think so. If it says the book from Allah, I think this is going to be understood as it was the Quran. So I can remember the tafsir. I try to avoid it whenever I can. You're right. Also, it's in the. It was not written. Muhammad is speaking with people. This is something as well.
It has to be the Quran here. I understand that it can be understood as the Injil. When you talk about the book that came to them, but it has to be the Quran. Otherwise, the disbeliever argument wouldn't make sense. You see, in order for the disbeliever to disbelieve, they have to, according to the Islamic narrative, they have to reject Muhammad and Islam and the Quran. The disbelievers, according to the Islamic narrative, they are not disbelievers because they disbelieve in the Injil. They are disbelievers because they disbelieve in Islam, in Muhammad's message. You see my point?
Yeah, I see your point. I'm actually very quickly. Actually, Lloyd, maybe I don't know. If do you have any good tafsirs that we can just have a look? Just to have fun with
I'll
that
have a
one.
look also.
We don't have.
Tafsir of 289.
Yep. And let's see what it says. Just in case that the very previous verse is talking about the Injil, but if it says a book from Allah, I would say it's most likely going to be about the Quran, and then we can have fun with that one.
289, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. So now we need the tafsirs. Here we go, all of them. Which one do you want? There's a whole bunch.
Wait. Well, any that will say what is the book from Allah.
Yeah, it talks about Muhammad here. You see?
A book from Allah, from God, book from God.
Oh, look, confirming what the second one, it says.
The first one says it's about the Quran.
This is the Quran. Yeah, okay, excellent. So thank you, Lloyd. So this is talking about the Quran, and it makes absolutely no sense. It's talking in the past tense. So if we think about it, Mohammed is there saying to people, and when there came to them a book from Allah, they would be like, sorry, what book are you talking about? The Quran. He's like, but you didn't write it down. They don't have a book. It makes no sense.
Amɇn also says Quran. The second one also says Quran. The third one says nothing. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, the fourth, nothing. You're right. That's very interesting. Some say nothing and some call it the Quran. You're right. Yeah. Interesting.
I hope people watching, they can at least see how this book had nothing to do with the Islamic narrative, and then they have to create one. And when they start putting things into the book, it just breaks when you just look at it. And there is so much in these verses that every translator will translate in the present tense, but the Arabic is in the past tense. It's talking past events. And they are shoehorning Muhammad everywhere. We've lost Odon. So how are you finding all of this stuff, Lloyd? Are you finding it useful? Are you having comments from people?
This episode has had a lot of very heated conversation. I mean, we've had a lot of discussion on the basis of what you've discussed so far, right, Odon? This has been a very, I mean, you know what? There's room for argument. There's room for discussion. But notice we're not that divergent. I mean, we're all going in the same direction. It's just that there's little issues over details, but I don't see how you can support a single messenger that's a well-defined character who lived in a specific time, in a specific place for a specific period, and did a specific thing. I mean, there'd be a clearer indication in history, I would think. But then you've got all of this weird stuff. Just none of it adds up.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
and when we see, and the guys who actually wrote the tafsir, they are basically the same people who wrote the hadiths. It's the same spirit of bid'ah, like to call it that. There are people whose job it is to create something that is not there. We see that in the hadiths. We've discussed the moon split. So there was one verse in the Quran, and then later they go and they write a whole tradition around that. They write a isnad, they fabricate all of that. So we know they were in, there was an intention, they were doing this on purpose. The thing is that they didn't start that in the 12th century. They started that with the book itself. They just tried to write a whole different narrative, and we can see that in the hadiths, we can see it in the Quran, and as we can see, well, the character of Mohammed is not in the Quran contradicts Islam. Don't you find this kind of interesting, or I don't know if wonderful? The book of Islam contradicts Islam entirely.
Yeah, I guess the Quranic dilemma still stands very strongly. Oh, Adam says, you know what? Adam is very smart, and he just said you're an Islamophobe. You guys are all Islamophobias. Adam, would you like to come up for 5 minutes? We'll probably wind down slowly. It's getting late. What do you think? But Adam, if you'd like to come up, here's the link in the chat. If you want to add anything, if you can take us on, if you dare. Because we are, we're not afraid of the great Adam Seeker. So, yeah. I don't know, this thing about the Quran. I mean, that yes, you're holding the Quran with you, but the Quran wasn't sent down in full yet. So, I mean, yeah, the tafsir writers are obviously, I mean, look, I do the tafsir weekly with Usama, and clearly the tafsir is it's hysterical garbage, which cannot justify itself. It's insane.
Yeah. You see how it gives a new color to the interpretation of the turmoils between Muslims in the 9th and the 10th century, the opposition between the Mutazilit and the Ash'arites, the Mihna revolution, and also the Buyids, the Shia Buyids, taking over the Abbasids. I think that the religious quarrels were fueled by this kind of crap, the invention of such a fake narrative.
But then my story of the squabbling between different groups who were in control of the Quran at the time, that kind of stands again, because you have this need to harmonize these contradictions, and the tafsir points out these issues, these contradictions, and the need to harmonize. And so the tafsir is evidence of this big fight that was going on, Hello, our favorite Murtad.
Assalamu alaikum, ya habibis. You are so Islamophobes. What are you doing? This is the month of the Islamophobias. I have to tell the world. Everyone is Islamophobes.
I'm officially changing my name to Max Islamophobia.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That is why I don't like you guys. Allah says in the Quran, you are like dogs. If we put weight on you, you pant. If we don't put weight on you, you still pant. So you are like all panting dogs. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
I'm going to take beer. I am so sad hearing what you say. I need to take beer.
Take beer.
Well, Adam, very nice actually speaking with you again. I think after everything that we have been showing here and discussing with Lloyd and with Odon, I think it's fair to say that if we think that the Quran says one thing, it probably doesn't, because the whole thing is a mess.
Yeah, this
Mashallah.
is... Adam, did you see this last one where they say that the book that is in your hands, in the tafsir it says the book that is in your hands is the Quran, but the Quran wasn't written yet.
Exactly.
So then it makes no sense. The tafsir is upside down and backwards, and then this whole Quran is clearly not telling the story that. Anyway, your thoughts? I mean,
So the book is in your hand is Surah Baqarah, ayah number 1, right? Ayah number 2. Dalikal kitabu la rayba fi. That is where it comes from. So you need to understand that zalik does not mean this, it means that. There is a word called this is in Arabic, it's haza. And it has been used in the Quran multiple times. So every time you will look into this verse, this, let me, I've done this so many times, man. It's just unbelievable. So let me do this, Quran.com, and we will do this. And then you will see how many times it has been misinterpreted. So if you, this means that. I have done a video called This Means That. Have you seen that?
Alika.
sounds familiar, but
I know about the argument because an Aramaic speaking friend of mine explained me. He explained me that the second verse of the Surah 2 already contradicts the Islamic narrative. This is the book about which there is no doubt.
It actually means that.
It's not the Quran. He told me when you go to a store and you want to buy a bottle of milk, you ask the guy, give me a bottle of milk. The guy takes one bottle and you say, no, the other, Dalika, the other bottle. So in Surah 2, this is the other book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of God, which means there is a previous book, which is the Torah.
Exactly. And if you read the Ibn Kasir and Qurtubi of this verse, they actually says here Allah is referring to that, which means the Torah and Injil.
Yeah.
The Torah and Injil. So both. And then Ibn Kasir adds Torah, Injil, and Quran. And Quran. So he adds and Quran as well in it. So this is how bad it is. If you look at it, it's so destructive. They don't even know what is happening. And they have to, because they know this is the verse which came right after Hijrah, right? Alif Lam Mim Zalikal Kitabu La Rayba Fi, right?
Supposedly.
Supposedly, yeah, as they claim.
The very first Medinan verses.
Yeah. And at that particular time, Quran is not even a book, obviously by default.
Yeah.
It's just 90 chapters that has been revealed. So, sorry, not 80, it's 50 something, 50 odd.
And they haven't been written yet. So it's
and
not
it hasn't been written. It's not a book. It's just written in some parchment here, there, some bones, some etc. So what is remaining then? So, you know, if you go to the tafsirs of these books, it is very, very silly because they actually says here, that means this.
Yeah.
Here, so I'll go to altafsir.com. Let me go there.
I wonder, why do scholars, the academics, the Harvards, the whatever, why are they not saying, look, guys, this is garbage. Clearly, here are the problems. Let's just lay them out. Someone please explain them. Come on, let's do a live debate. Explain these problems. And they could solve all of this like that.
They say it. They say it behind closed door. They say it behind closed door. But they won't ever say it publicly because that will ruin their career.
Wow. I'm shocked.
So,
I'm really shocked. Yeah.
Let me share my screen. I'll show you.
Sure.
I understand. Let's proceed. There you go. Okay. This is altafsir.com. Okay. This is altafsir.com. Let me zoom in a little. No, let's see here. It says, Ta'wil qawlu ta'ala, Zalikal kitab is Hadal kitab. That book is this book.
Yeah. It is a challenge to reason. How can you be a reasonable man when you are forced to understand the contrary of what is literally written?
This is the English translation by Google, and it says the interpretation of God Almighty's statement, that is the book, is this is the book.
A better translation would be this other book, that other is the book, this is the book.
So
that other one is the book. This is the book.
So let's go back. This is Tibri. Let's go to Al-Tibrisi. No matter how many you actually read, it will actually say something similar. Tibrisi, let's see. Okay. Okay. There you go. فإن قلت أخبرني عن تعويل ذلك الكتاب ما ألف لام ميم قلت it doesn't, where is it? It should say that in ma'ana wa ma'ana an ذلك الكتاب وهو الكتاب الكامل. There you go. Allah says that book. They're gonna say this book. And then إن يكون الكتاب صفة ومعنى هو ذلك الكتاب المعدود إن يكون ألف لام ميم خبر معروف and etc. They're talking about the ألف لام ميم and etc. And then Tanzilul Kitab. Now he removed the word Zalika from here. There is another Kira where Zalika is not even present there. Means there is another Arabic Quran in which the word Zalika is not there. It's Tanzilul Kitab. So you will go pages after pages from the Arabic scholars, and it will actually say you something similar. Qawlu ta'ala, Zalik al-Kitab, Fafiya Masail. There's so many Masail. Zalik al-Kitab, why is it sent Zalik al-Kitab, and etc. And then it says that it is Hadal Kitab. Hadal Kitab means this book. So that book means this book. And then some people says because it is Zalika, so it is the Torah or Injil. Torah or Injil in it. This, like, imagine this guy for one verse, Zalikal Kitabul La Raiba Fi, one single verse with 5 letters in it. He's writing over 10 pages. There's Mazid means more. So there's like what 12 pages for one particular sentence of 5 words.
So they're trying to drown it in noise, basically.
Exactly.
They cannot do otherwise. It would ruin the narrative.
I mean, this is a serious blocker. This is a serious problem.
Yeah, and it starts with the second verse. If you put the Fatiha aside, it's the second verse of the Quran.
Surah, I mean, second chapter.
Yeah, second chapter, and the second verse, if you put the Fatiha aside.
So there is a video on my channel. It's 10 minutes long. It's called "That Means This," the narrative of tafsir.
Have a look.
So in that video, I went through a lot of tafsir, which actually says that means this. So even if you look at it from the English ones, QuranX.com/tafsirs 2:2. Now imagine what's going to happen. In English, they cannot do something like that, right? You think. They removed that? Okay. That meaning this.
That meaning this. Yeah, here meaning there, she meaning he, me meaning you. I mean, it's like, yeah, whatever.
Well, probably, I mean, if this begins with that means this, then when they tell you the messenger means Mohammed, of course you're gonna believe it. They started the book in that manner. They say the book, and it's very clearly the Injil, but they will say no, that means the Quran. So they basically just it's like a blank book, and they just tell you a completely different meaning of everything that is in there. This is hilarious.
Oh, hilarious! There's so many hilarious things. So let me do this. I'll show you. What do you call it? Share from start at this point. Copy. That's my own video, so nobody is going to give you copyright anyways. So that means this. Man, these guys are trying to fix Allah's Arabic, man. Zalik al-Kitab. Zalik al-Kitab. Hazal kitab.
ذلك الكتاب.
Oh, check this. Ibn Kathir. Zalik al-Kitabu Hazal kitab.
Dude,
that is Ibn Kathir.
You know what's so funny, Adam, is that I've heard about this for years, but I've never really taken it seriously. And the thing is, I still wasn't going to take it seriously until I saw the Ibn Kathir and Jalalain. Both Ibn Kathir and the Jalalain all are twisting this. They're all
Zalik means
twisting this.
haza. Man, I'm loving this, man. This is just so awesome.
Wow.
Zalik means haza.
Wow. ذلك الكتاب I had or you know what it says I means or this.
Oh no, come read this. An zalik bamaini haza.
بمعنى هذا. Okay, it says that, but it means this.
This.
Classic. This is who is this? Ibn Kathir?
Ibn Kathir, man.
In ذلك بمعنى هذا. He's saying that means this.
This.
That's what Ibn Kathir is saying. Dude, this is hilarious, man.
As-Sayyuti. Let's look at Sayyuti.
Beauty.
It's writing, but Sayyuti is writing after Ibn Kathir. He should say Zalika bamaina haza, probably. Zalik I haza. So he is actually taking the Ibn Kathir's narrative because Ibn Kathir actually says Zalika means haza. So because As-Sayyuti is writing after Ibn Kathir. So
And you
before
guys-
Ibn Kathir.
You guys, these are big guns. These are very important.
Let's look at Baghvi. That is before Ibn Kathir. Let's see what he says.
I have that.
Hey, check this out first. Zalikal kitab, I hazal kitab. Look, there you go.
So there
There
you
you
go.
go. So he's saying the same thing. That
Yes.
Zalikal kitab means I hazal kitab.
But bro, he's also given this little explanation that when it's close to you, he's saying when it's close to you, you say it's this. When it's far away, you say it's that book.
What happened to Alamia when he was writing Surah Cow? Ayah number 2. What happened there, man? Like seriously, what happened to Allah over here?
Wow.
Did he lose the language? So many of them. You can actually have a full context of it. This is the first time we had the epiphany to check this. So me and Steve Hussain, we were doing a live show, and I was like, this. Let's look into this, and you can see my excitement and laughter at that particular time. This is what, like 4 years ago or something like that.
Bring him on, and then with
yeah,
Usama,
4
we
years
should
ago.
discuss this. Wow, this is crazy.
4 years ago.
Wow.
And you can't just make this thing up. You just simply cannot make this thing up. That means this? Like really? That means this. Unbelievable.
And any Muslim, if you ask them, they will tell you the Quran is the very clear book in very clear Arabic that needs no interpretation, no explanation. And if you read it, it makes no sense. And then you go to the tafsirs and they tell you absolute nonsense. Incredible.
This is one of the reasons why I believe that the Quran that is mentioned in the text is not the Quran. Because this Quran that is mentioned is supposed to be written in clear Arabic, and obviously the Quran is not. So it refers to another book, another lectionary. This is the only way the Quranic text can make sense.
Wow.
Then where is the pure Arabic Quran?
That's a good
The
question.
pure Arabic Quran, so it's another book which is written in clear Arabic, which is a lectionary, which has excerpts from the Kitab, from the Holy Scriptures, from the Torah and the Injil. And it is described within the Quran as being another book. Not the Quran itself, but another
like
book.
a decay or something of that region?
Excuse me, Lloyd?
So potentially like a Didache or something of that region.
A Didache, excuse me, I didn't get you.
The Didache, you know, the Didache,
Didache, oh, yeah, okay.
Something like
Not
that.
the Didache. No. It's described as being a lectionary.
The lectionary.
Quran means lectionary.
Qur'ana. Okay.
Yeah, it's what I explained in my book. But if you look at all the description of the Quran within the Quran, so it's written in Arabic, it's written in clear Arabic. There are other Quran in other languages, but this one is the real Quran. If you look at all of them, you realize it doesn't talk about the Quran, the Islamic Quran, but it talks about another book. It refers to another book.
Right.
Well,
this is a
what that
mess.
means
It's getting...
then, what it means is that this book that we now have actually abrogated the Quran. There you go, or archivated, one of the two.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I should wind down in a few minutes. It's getting late here. But
How
wow,
do I
this...
unshare? How do I
You have...
unshare?
What was that, Adam?
How do I end share? Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so JC, you've just caused a lot of problems now. You've opened up a bottle of worms here. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what you are welcome.
Yeah, this is just a can of worms you've opened now, and now it's caused more problems for us.
Yeah.
Well, if there is one thing that we have learned today is that we are actually not reading the Quran because the Quran was already destroyed. So we are reading the text that abrogated the Quran, and we're still trying to make sense of it. And it takes a village to actually get there. But one verse at a time, we will get there within our lifetimes.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I do believe we can reverse engineer it. If a human designed it, a human can reverse engineer it.
That's not a code,
What we are
man.
doing.
Say, Adam?
I said that's not a code. Like, how can you reverse engineer?
This is what I try to do in my book. I haven't reverse engineered the whole of the Quran, but I have explained something like 100 verses, key verses.
Okay,
Yeah,
I obviously definitely missed the first part of this live stream because I was doing another live stream on my channel. If
Yeah, no, we obviously Usama was
Later.
here with us as well because Usama, I'll tell you, Adam, Usama at first was very skeptical, but then he told me, hey, I'd actually want to do another episode with you guys because now he's hooked into this and now he's kind of, you know, buying the idea that we're presenting it, the way we're looking at this, trying to reverse engineer how the fiction was created, you know.
This is so crazy. I need to rewatch this. I mean, I need to watch it, not rewatch it, because I wasn't here. It's intriguing when you actually use the word that you'll recreate it, and it's just like I'm intrigued. I would like to know more on how you could. Is this the first episode, or you guys have done this episodes before? Like, is this?
It's our third with JC. I did me and him, and then we had Odon come on, and then Odon was just me and Odon, right? And then Usama did the third with us. Yeah, we needed an Arabic speaker for the third. So this is our fourth, but it's not like you're going to miss anything. You don't have to do the first ones. This one is, I mean, the first one or the second one might be useful. The first one, maybe. The first one is probably just, but basically, how do we explain this? JC writes fiction novels, okay? So he's taking the idea of how you use real events, real news, and turn that into a fiction novel. Take real things and make them into fiction, but then also how do you, as a writer, do that and make it seem compelling by weaving fiction with fact and using existing things, but disguising it, changing it to fit into your fictional. And then he's thinking, I think, was how do I do this with the Quranic story? How do I reverse engineer how they created the story from real and fictional things? Would that be a good, am I correct, JC?
Yes, like pretty much spot on. It's if we have all of the hadiths, where did they come from? So many people wrote them. Why were they writing the tafsirs? When? And when you are trying to put all of those pieces together, you realize that somebody tells a story. This is something that Odon explains very well at the NAPC conference, that there is a story that has to be created. And then it has plot holes, so another story is created to fix the plot holes. So now you have more, and it keeps on going. So reverse engineering that is realizing, okay, so let's go through the source, let's go as well to the end game, and then let's try to find the middle ground, like how did the things go from step 1 to step 2 and so on. But now it's just about looking at the Quran and realizing that they have lied about every single verse.
But there are patterns and processes they've used. Does that make sense, Adam?
Yeah, that's a very intriguing way to do that. Like, quite frankly, like, yes, I can see if you go to Tibri, there are some sources. Then you go to Qurtubi, it's written later, so you have additional sources. Then you go to Ibn Kasir, he omits some of the early sources and adds some of his own opinion. And then you come to the latest scholars suddenly, and they have their own pick and choose of thing. And kind of, this is like,
And then there's also
it's a
arguments
mind-boggling
between
thing.
the writers. Think there are arguments between the early writers, the middle writers, and the later writers. You had like one group with one set of ideas, another group with another set, and now you've got a mess, and a third group comes along and has to try and fix it all up and make it work together somehow.
And then he says something is wrong, is bad, and then you have a new culture of da'if and fabrication and all that. Whereas if you go and read Tibri, he mostly accepts all of them almost, and that is why nowadays people don't go to Tibri, because he's the earliest source. Like if you look at the Christianity, the Christians actually go to the source close to the Christ. They will go to as close as you can go to the Christ. Like they'll go to the church of the 1st century, the 2nd century, and the 3rd century. They'll go as close as possible, and then you have like sola scriptura. They'll say, okay, we will stick to the first 12 apostles and whatever they say, and nothing more beyond that, and with it's written in there only. So you'll go to close, and then you'll be like, we'll go to very, very close part. But whereas if you look at the Islamic ideologies, they will leave the closer sources. They'll say, leave that, accept the new narrative. Ibn Kathir is like, what, 13th century, and they will accept Ibn Kathir more than Tibri, more than Qurtubi.
It's crazy,
And
eh?
it's just, and then the new age ones will be like, oh no, we don't care. We'll go for the 19th century or 20th century source or 21st century source. That is just like unbelievable. They don't go closer to the source; they go away from the source.
So yes,
this is what Patricia Krohn explained in her article. What do we actually know about Muhammad? She found it very odd that the later the writer, the more details he has.
How do they get the more details? Like that's what I'm saying. Like if you read the Ibn Kathir's Tafsir al-Badaya wal-Nihaya, the first paraphrase, he says that I am not going to use any source outside Islam, and I'm going to use the snippets of the Bible just to emphasize the point. Whereas when you read his book al-Badaya wal-Nihaya, you'll see 50% of his sources actually from the Bible.
Exactly, Ibn Kathir. But if someone, guys, can someone fund us to take Yasser Qadhi's class to get all the answers? Because if you take Yasser Qadhi's class, you'll understand everything.
This is Mulad al-Islam. This is a sarcastic remark. You know that, right?
I know,
Okay,
but it's
yes,
true.
never
We
mind.
need to take Yasser Qadhi's class. So
And
yeah,
then we will be as dumb as him.
I must say actually now, because we mentioned Yasser Qadhi, as much as I appreciate you, Adam, and so many Christian apologists, the best Christian apologist on planet Earth is Yasser Qadhi. He has actually taken more Muslims out of Islam and into Christianity than anybody else. Truth.
This episode goes on.
That is so good. That is so good. And people are abusing Yasser Qadhi left, right, and center. I have a couple of videos on it where like 4 or 5 of the Muslims are and but like he's the one who actually says a lot of things in true face rather than lying in deception. He's the one who actually started the holes in the narrative game. He's the one who actually exposed the Dulkarnain going to the 2 mountains and building a wall, and he said like, stop saying this is the wall of this and wall of that, we can't find this wall, so on and so forth. He exposed so many things. It's unbelievable. He's the one who actually exposed the age of Aisha far more than anybody else. Like no matter you pick any topic, he's actually true to his words, like most of the time, not all. Remember, not
don't
all.
get Mr. We're proud of that.
Yeah, and that proud of that was and then again, he's the one who actually stated for the very first time Islam spread by sword. You know that, right? He said every single area at that time were spreading by a sword, and if we spread by sword, so what? Like there was no dire need for using sword against Tabuk and going to the fringes of Iran, Persia, and etc., except to spread Islam, and they use the sword because that's Quran chapter number 9 verse number 29. There are a lot of videos to unpack in him. Yes, he adds some sugar coating in it. That's like, I think it's needed. Like obviously he has to do something to protect, but yeah, he's the one who exposed it the most.
Yeah, but I think things are moving very fast. So guys, I should call it an end. It's a bit late for me because I need to do some things still. And
hey, just to let you know, I've been running another show on lying in Islam. I showed your presentation, one page of your presentation 2 weeks ago, and then everybody was so annoyed and agitated about the lying. And now I'm doing another show with the Finding My God guy, and we are doing all of it not through the presentation but the actual books now, so that everyone will know. So that your presentation on lying in Islam is the best thing that has been created to bring Muslims out of Islam, and I'm telling you
Thanks,
that. And
man.
I've said
Appreciate
that.
it.
I used this presentation in my Urdu channel as well, like a year and a half ago. And this is a presentation that is just insane.
Appreciate it, man. Well, just send people our way, and yeah, thanks, man. Good to hear it. I'm glad it's helpful. I'm glad it's doing good, and yeah. Well, if you want to do something another time, of course. So look, the next time we do a show like this, maybe Adam, I'll reach out to you. I'll let you know, and see if we can coordinate. You know, it's hard to coordinate many people, but I mean, this is an ongoing discussion we're having, and I think it's JC. Today, you lit a lot of fires, man. You really set off a bunch of firecrackers tonight. You know.
I'm glad to hear. I did actually leave most of the slides out. I thought we were going to have more time, but then I slowed down. But anyway, I have that for the next time. It's going to be a big one.
Yeah, so let's maybe do next Friday. What do you guys think? Do you want to do like next Friday? Would that work?
Next week, you mean?
Yeah, next week. What do you guys think? Next week?
Not
Friday,
tomorrow.
perhaps?
Yeah.
Not tomorrow. No, I'm not available, but in a week. So on the 14th, what do you guys think? 14th?
Okay with me.
Yeah. Adam, if you're free, let us know. I'm going to invite.
Yeah,
Usama.
Fridays are a little difficult for me. I can do Thursdays and Tuesdays. Fridays are a little difficult, but I will
can do
try
Thursday.
to make up.
We can do Thursday. What do you guys think? Thursday?
So the next week is also okay with me.
Next Saturday actually sounds good.
If it's Thursday, then we can. Then I can coordinate. I'll speak to Usama as well in advance.
Okay.
We'll try and get this, because this has been fascinating. So yeah, we should call it a night here. Unfortunately for me, I'd love to go on, but I mean, this has been great. Thanks for joining, Adam.
Oh no, thank you so very much. You just gave me another subject to learn, and I will definitely rewatch this video. And next time I'll bring up questions for JC and put him on a hot seat. Yes, baby.
Do it. You know what? This is great, because Usama was skeptical at first, and then Usama, after the show, he called me and said, "I want to be on the next one." You know, so because he's thinking he says this is a fascinating way of seeing the Quran. It's a whole new way for him as well.
Yeah, for me as well, because like I've never thought of this subject in this manner, the way JC is explaining, and you guys have explained it to me in the last 10-15 minutes. It's just fascinating to look at it from this perspective, and then actually recreating the original story and going back to the origin, because there are like so many stories for one single verse. Like each and every single verse in the Quran actually gives you like tons of stories. Like this is such a silly things. Like even the hadiths have explanation on them. For example, the hadith of the Muhammad's donkey, you know, there are explanation of the donkeys of Muhammad. Like,
I mean, there's the tafsir of hadiths. Don't forget.
Yeah,
And
that's
look,
what I'm saying. That the tafsir of hadith.
But most of it seems to be about Jesus. That's the thing. Most of it seems to be about Jesus. It's not about Muhammad most of the time.
But I'm talking about donkey of Muhammad. You know, there was a donkey of Muhammad. His name was Yafur. Okay. Now his name was Yafur. But the problem is that if you go to the tafsir of the hadith, they are fighting about what color was the hair of the donkey Yafur. Was it brown, black, or red, or white? Some even says white. So they are talking pages and pages on the hair color of the donkey Yafur. So they omitted the real subject, and so it's like, you know, when you go into the court, the law, what does the lawyer do? The lawyer will bury you under paperwork, right?
Right.
That's exactly what they are doing. They're burdening you with so much paperwork that the real subject matter vanishes in the middle, and you are talking about something else, the color of the hairs of the donkey.
Yeah, but Andrew makes a good point. Jesus rode a donkey. Muhammad had a donkey. See? Look, it was Jesus. Yeah.
But which Christian apologist actually wrote pages after pages of the color of the hair of the donkey which Jesus rode.
Nobody. We don't even know what color the freaking donkey was, and nobody cared.
Yeah, why do you care of the color of the hair of the donkey? Why do you care?
The tafsir writers and the hadith writers, they very clearly were paid by the hour.
Yeah.
So guys,
were
yeah,
very
let's
well
call it a
paid.
night here. I need to, I need to call it a night. But this has been great. So we can do this in a week. But guys, thank you. So then so Adam, thanks again. Odon, JC, it's been a banger of an evening. Really good discussion.
Thank you, Lloyd, Odon, Adam. Looking forward to the next one. Everyone watching, God bless you all.
Yeah.
God bless you all. Allah